Hello, Debbie. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Welcome back. We're so glad that you're here today. And once again, I'm looking forward to learning some new stuff.
I hope I can live up to it.
Yes, you can. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen.
Great.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope that I can hold my own after following in Dr. Kate's footsteps. I'm going to drill into a type of dementia that's called primary progressive aphasia. And we've been hearing about it in the news a little bit by other names. So I thought I'd take a moment to talk about what it is. By way of disclosure, I am I'm a speech language pathologist, and I am also honored to be the executive director of Voices of Hope for Aphasia. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do. And if any of you recognize symptoms in your loved ones that might be aphasia, primary progressive aphasia or otherwise, we can help. All right, so I'm going to start with a general definition of aphasia. For those of you who attended Linda's awesome conference last time, you may be hearing this again, but a little hint, we're going to talk about exactly what aphasia is and maybe not so much what's necessarily in the news. So this is a little bit harsher of a quote than I wanted, but you'll know why in a moment. We may be hearing, we need to read between the lines and what's being said in the media. So I'm going to give you what's between the lines. So the base definition of aphasia is that it is an acquired language disorder. So the first part of it is that it's a language disorder, which means the four modalities of language, the four ways in which we use language. Of course, speaking is the most obvious, but also understanding language, reading and comprehending what's written, and then also expressing ourselves through writing. Another little hint about what I'm going to be talking about. But this quote, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, is a trigger for me also to give the analogy that it's not just a speaking a disorder, it is a disorder of language. So if I drop you into the middle of Spain, hopefully not during the Inquisition, and maybe you took some Spanish classes in high school, but it's really, really, really rusty, all of these parts of language will be impacted. I've just given you a language disorder. I've dropped you into a country where you don't speak the language. So you might not speak as fluently as you do in a language that you know. You might not be able to understand everything that is being said to you. And certainly reading, or if somebody says, oh, you can't talk to me, why don't you just write it? Well, if you don't know Spanish, you're not going to be able to write Spanish. So it's important to know that it's not just speaking, it is a language disorder. So the second part of the definition is that it's an acquired language disorder. This means you were using language just fine, and then something happened and you've now acquired this disorder. When we're talking about aphasia, the vast majority of aphasia is due to stroke. About 72% of aphasia is due to stroke. And then there's a portion that's due to brain injury, some tumor impacting that part of the brain. And then the one that I'm going to be talking about today, which is primary progressive aphasia. It's the tiny little slice on here, but it's been a lot in the news, so I'm going to talk about it. And then infection and toxins can cause you to acquire a language disorder. So we've been talking a lot about dementia. The most common kind, the one that we know the best, is Alzheimer's. And there's a huge part of our population, unfortunately, that struggles with Alzheimer's. But if you notice, people who have aphasia from any of those etiologies that I shared with above, there's also a large proportion of our population that struggles using language. Unfortunately, less than 14%. So about 4 million, possibly up to 4 million people. The conservative estimate is about 2.4 million, but possibly up to 4 million people have aphasia. Less than 14% of the population knows what it is. And I'm not really sure that this number has ticked up much, even though it's been in the media. Now, PPA, again, that little tiny slice in the pie that I showed you above, accounts for about 50,000 people. I'm going to guess that it's probably more than that. I think it's underdiagnosed. But so a portion of people with aphasia have PPA, and I'm about to reveal what it is. But people who struggle with a language disorder I often hear, oh, I didn't know that's what it is. My uncle had a stroke and he had trouble talking. Or, oh, yeah, my neighbor had a car accident and then afterwards couldn't talk to me. That's aphasia, but we don't know the name of it. So please share it. So this is a very, very, very loose and generic description of our brain and how our brain processes language. But there are two areas of the brain, right here, this darker orange, and then this area, which is a slightly paler orange. These two sections of our brain, portions of our brain on the left side of our brain. So this guy's looking in that direction. So we're looking at the left hemisphere. These two areas of our brain process language. So if anything happens to those areas, a stroke, a brain injury, or disease setting in, it can affect how we process language. The little section that's a little further forward, which we call Broca's area, can result in one type of aphasia called non-fluent aphasia. And then this portion in the back, which is a little bit broader and wider, is called Wernicke's area. And if there's damage in this area, the language that we refer to is either semantic primary progressive aphasia or fluent aphasia. All right. So perhaps you're seeing some familiar faces on this sheet. Thankfully, some awareness of aphasia has increased, although in various ways. That's why I am happy to have the opportunity to define it a little bit better. Former Representative Gabby Giffords has been in the news a lot, and she's shared and released a movie. She has chronic aphasia due to a gunshot wound to the brain, so to a brain injury. You may have heard the news that actor Bruce Willis has aphasia, and then they called it frontotemporal dementia. Both of those things are true. I'm going to refine it a little bit. I'm going to say that Bruce Willis has primary progressive aphasia, which is a form of dementia that starts with the loss of language due to this disease, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. For the Monty Python fans in our group, Terry Jones passed away a few years ago due to primary progressive aphasia. Senator John Fetterman recently had a stroke, and he is having language disorder, in particular comprehension, auditory comprehension, due to a stroke. And unfortunately, though also very, very common, significant depression due to being in the limelight. I'm probably putting words in his mouth, but being in the limelight with a language disorder and recovering from a stroke. But we have other people, General Mark Hayden, a 4- or 5-star general, I should know that, has aphasia due to a stroke. Actor Sharon Stone has mild aphasia due to a stroke, and Randy Travis has severe aphasia And if you have seen any of these people post-stroke, post-aphasia, they all present very, very differently. So it's hard to know what aphasia is because it looks very different. Linda, I see that there's questions popping up. I do want to make this interactive. I have hopefully left some time at the end. So if there's relevant questions popping up, I'm happy to take them. Or I'll keep going. All right. Welcome to the
I will check the questions, and when there's a break, then we'll talk.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about what exactly is primary progressive aphasia, which is also known as PPA. And unfortunately, Bruce Willis has joined that unfortunate party. Okay. So primary progressive aphasia is a neurological syndrome, a progressive degenerative syndrome that is caused by principally by two diseases, though it could be more. Alzheimer's disease, I made that bold and green as opposed to Alzheimer's dementia, the disease that is Alzheimer's disease, or the one that Bruce Willis has and has his family has shared, is frontotemporal degeneration, frontotemporal lobar degeneration, frontotemporal disease, which is a disease that is impacting the language portions of the brain. It slowly and progressively impairs language. So a person will start to realize that something is wrong when it's getting worse. A person with a stroke is going to get better, but if it's progressively getting worse and it is impacting language, it's possibly primary progressive aphasia. So again, the bad news is that it's a type of dementia. PPA is defined, so any dementia is sort of categorized and diagnosed based on what the initial symptoms are. So if the initial symptoms are a loss of language, then we refer to it as PPA. So there's other types of dementia, and certainly Dr. Kate and Linda are more versed in all of these, but just to differentiate PPA from other types of dementia, we know that dementia of the Alzheimer's type, which is caused by Alzheimer's disease, also by like PPA, is diagnosed if the first symptoms are a loss of short-term memory. Short-term memory first, repeating yourself, or doing asking the same question several times in the day. So those are sort of the first symptoms, that short-term memory that classify it as an Alzheimer's type of dementia. Frontotemporal dementia, the word dementia as opposed to disease here, is also caused by the same disease that can cause PPA, but it settles in a different portion of the brain. And the first symptoms of frontotemporal dementia are changes in personality. Again, if frontotemporal disease settles into those language centers of the brain that I showed you on the left side, then it's going to result in this, in PPA. And then some other types, Lewy body dementia, which I also heard Dr. Kate mention. The first symptoms of that are changes in sort of cognitive functioning, reasoning, Parkinson's disease dementia, which obviously if you know that somebody has Parkinson's, then it's easier to diagnose that it's going to be this type, but also sort of a decrease, starts with a little bit of a decrease in reasoning. I will tell you that one also can result in loss or change in language processing. So this is how we differentiate and how we diagnose when it's called primary progressive aphasia. So the reality is, because of those areas of the brain, they're separate. There's one that's sort of larger. It can differ dramatically from person to person. And the initial language disruptions could be subtle. They could just be loss of a single word here and there, or it could disrupt the natural flow of language and make it choppier. So either fluent or non-fluent, the rate of progression, the type of dementia, the type of PPA, the progress, really depends on the amount of damage, the amount of disease and the location in the left hemisphere. Yes, Linda.
Somebody just sent in and said, my husband's having problems with speaking, but my doctor says it's old age.
Okay, so it could be. And if you are noticing that it is getting worse and he is struggling to communicate, this is where I would answer that question from the prior one. Get a second opinion, and maybe ask directly, could this be primary progressive aphasia? It is underdiagnosed. This is what I said at the top. It's underdiagnosed. I don't want to overdiagnose it, certainly, but if a person is starting to struggle to communicate, then maybe get it looked at again. And depending on what part of the country you are in, I'm jumping to my last slide, aphasia centers can help.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the 3 types of PPA. Again, depending on where the disease settles, it can look different. I'm not going to delve too much into the definitions because I could talk about this all day long. But I do want to stress that it can look different. And maybe for the person who asked that question, if you recognize your husband's symptoms in these, maybe you can, because I'm going to show videos, maybe you can use this to sort of drill down with your doctor.
She just said, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So the first is called logopenic. And this type of PPA starts with word finding issues. All types of aphasia are defined by difficulty word finding, but this one in particular, they'll be saying lots of words, and in the beginning they can make a lot of sense, but then a person gets to one word and either the wrong word comes out or it comes out weird, or they stop themselves in their track and suddenly they can't think of the word. And in the early stages, again, a person with this type of PPA is going to almost even anticipate, oop, I don't have the word that's coming up. So they talk around the word. So if I'm missing the word table and I'm using a sentence and I come up on the word table, in my brain, I know I don't have that word. So I'm going to say, the thing where we have dinner. I'm going to show a video in 1 second that gives a really good description of it. So here's the unfortunate part. We often think of dementia as an old person's disease. Primary progressive aphasia sets in early. Typical onset of this type of PPA is somewhere in our 50s. But there are natural and normal reasons for missing your words. So I don't want to overdiagnose. Otherwise, I'm sitting in the neurologist's office right now. But this one sets in early. So let me show you a video. So this is a mild form of logopenic PPA. And I want you to hear it. She gives a really good description of what she's experiencing. And Linda, jump in if you cannot hear the video.
I can say the words sometimes, and sometimes I can't. And in a sentence, I can't make it make sense. If I can say each word, I can't make them say what it's supposed to say. It's just like duh, 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 duh. It doesn't come, not as if, it doesn't mean anything. And I can't remember just everyday words. It's not like when you can't remember somebody's name. It's not like that. It's just like that, a word like table or the window or things you've said all your life. And suddenly you can't, and then one day, there's one word I can never remember. It's 𝐓𝐘𝐒 thing. I can't even say it. And I know what it is when they're in a building. You know, they have the 𝐓𝐘𝐒, whatever it is. And I've got it written down in my phone. And I look at it and I try and say it. And sometimes I can say it and sometimes I can't. I know what it is. All these things I know, but I just can't say the word. Or just not remember it, or can't say it, one or the other.
All right, so you can see that she's talking fluently. That's not her issue, but she's running into words that either the sounds get mixed up, and in fact, the word came out as worf, and the word that she's trying to say, scaffolding, she cannot put the sounds in the right order. All right, so that's logopenic PPA.
I used to.
Stop. Okay, and the next one is called semantic PPA. So this is where the principal issue is comprehension. You're starting to have difficulty understanding the words, and consequently difficulty retrieving the words or hearing when you're using the wrong words. Again, the little hint from semantic is that words get mixed up, especially if they're close in meaning. So saying the word animal instead of cat, and more difficulty understanding conversations as they're coming more and more quickly. This one sets in slightly later, but also in our 50s and 60s. So this is an example. I don't have a great example of semantic PPA, so forgive me, because this is a gentleman who has a similar type of aphasia due to stroke, but this is a good representation of what happens in a later stage. So this is a severe form of fluent aphasia. Byron's is due to stroke, but it's similar. So again, this is a later stage representation of semantic PPA. Oops. Here we go.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talked with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. They'll save in the moment. He'll have water very soon for him. With luck. For him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to
We
get to
will
Juneau.
store it right here and they'll save their hands right there for them.
And what were we just doing with the iPad?
Right at the moment they don't show a darn thing.
With the iPad that we were doing. Like here?
I'd like my change for me and change hands for me.
All right. So this is a tricky type of aphasia. And again, this is a severe, so if we were talking about the primary progressive aphasia of this type, it means that it has progressed quite a bit, where there's not a lot of content words. So the semantics, the meaning of language has eroded away. And he's using a lot of filler words, a lot of words that are easy for him to grasp, that he repeats for the moment, we're over here for the moment. But you can tell they're on a cruise, and the only way that I think Megan, who's speaking to him, understands, has any context to know what he's talking about is because there's a pool outside the window. So he's talking about people in the pool, but he's not giving us a lot of those words. And then if you noticed, when she changes the topic of conversation and asks, what have we been doing with the iPad? His comprehension, that information didn't map to anything in his brain. So he didn't understand what she was asking. Yes.
Somebody sent in, they said, this looks like my husband totally. It is so frustrating. What do I do to deal with this? Are you going to tell me?
So I'm going to tell you some part. I will say, Linda, do they have access to the videos from last time?
Yes.
So the session that I did last time is specifically on supporting communication. So if you get a chance, go look at that because it will give you some tips. I'm going to talk about a little of them, but a few of them at the end. But I will say, and I will also say this later, go to the National Aphasia Association website, aphasia.org, and search for a provider near you and look for aphasia centers. They can help. So if you're in Florida, that's us. And you'll have the link for us at the end again. But, and then also you have my email. So reach out to me and I can help you.
Okay. And I'll also have her email and I can pull it from the last session and send it to her separate.
Perfect.
Okay.
Can I ask, oops, this is going to start again. Can I ask that person, did something like a sudden onset, like a stroke, or is it degenerative like PPA?
She hasn't answered yet.
Okay.
When she does, I'll let you know.
Okay. And good, because I forgot what my response was going to be.
Okay. This is a dementia conference, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-oh, sign me up. All right. So the third type is called non-fluent or agrammatic PPA. So this is on that little chart, the disease is settling in a little bit further forward in the brain. That means that a person is struggling to form full sentences. Their wording is starting to get a little bit choppy and speaking sort of principally in noun phrases, but it's starting to get more and more difficult to form a grammatically correct sentence. This one is a little later of an onset. So this gentleman, there's another, just to confound all of this, there's another disease progression that is called primary progressive apraxia, which oftentimes happens with this type of primary progressive aphasia. And it's because of the nature of where these two things are happening in our brain. And primary progressive apraxia refers to the ability for your mouth to do what your brain is trying to tell it. So a person may have worked out exactly what the word is that they want to say, but their mouth is not doing what they mean to do. So this gentleman is sort of in the middle stages, mid-early stages of non-fluent primary progressive aphasia. And again, I want you to hear it from him directly and listen to his speech patterns, which is different than the others.
Speech is becoming more.
Used to do presentations and talk to the staff. At times, that's all gone now.
Primary progressive aphasia is the term we used to refer to the set of.
Sorry, he's stealing my presentation, so I'm going to take it back.
Telephone. Most, and I used to wave my hands about in facial expressions. I can't do anything like that on the phone.
The person might notice that their speech is becoming.
So if you notice, he's struggling to get those words out. He's struggling to build the phrases. This gentleman has both apraxia and aphasia, primary progressive apraxia and primary progressive aphasia. That's keeping his mouth from doing what he wants to do. It's a lot of effort to come up with the words. So this is, if you notice, the three people that I just showed you look dramatically different, but they're all a progressive, except for Byron, who is a representation from a progressive form of aphasia.
Oh,
So somebody just, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So somebody just said, my boyfriend has this, and I believe it's due to a severe car accident we had. But I'm finding that he's giving up on talking at all now.
Ah,
What
okay.
can I do?
Yeah, okay. So I have a slide about this, and just I think
Okay, you can just go ahead if it's gonna be.
yeah, but I will say it is very possible. So probably your boyfriend has aphasia of the sudden onset version as opposed to the progressive version. But for both, the worst thing to do is to stop talking. But it is also the easiest thing, because you can imagine how frustrating it can be and how isolating it can feel. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. And again, take my email address, reach out to me, and I'll connect you with a local resource or with us if you are here. So now for something completely different, back to our Monty Python. So the main difference between the two, which I was just alluding to just a second ago. So aphasia due to stroke or an injury like a car accident, which I refer to as sudden onset. The good news is that the first day the person has aphasia due to this sudden onset is the day that the aphasia will be the worst or the most severe. Every day after a stroke, after a brain injury, after a car accident, after a gunshot wound, in the case, God forbid, but in the case of Gabby Giffords, every day after that, barring some other event, every day can get better. The immediate period, and I keep saying this, I'm going to take the time frame off of this chart because it is not time bound at all. But sort of that immediate period, our brains are fantastic at healing themselves. So it does a lot of work in stitching itself up. But every day can get better if you stay engaged, if you stay participating, if you keep practicing, if you go to speech therapy and engage in life, it can continue to get better. Now, this line is deceiving. It looks like it's a nice, smooth uphill line. It's not smooth. It'll be up and have ups and downs. But in general, it will continue to get better. The progress will get slower over time, and it is a chronic condition. So a person with a sudden onset type of aphasia will struggle with aphasia for their life, but there's ways to continue to get better. Unfortunately, oh, for goodness sakes, why is this good news on this slide? Because it's not good news. Well, there is a little bit of good news. Unfortunately, primary progressive aphasia will continue to decline. That's the definition of this one. Symptoms come on slowly and will gradually get worse, but here's where the good news is. You can do things to help along the way. So engaging in life, going to speech therapy, using alternative ways to communicate can maintain that line up a bit more than if you're sitting at home doing nothing. So those are the ways that they're different. Aphasia and PPA do have things that are in common. And here's the one for your boyfriend. You will keep improving if you keep trying, if you keep communicating, if you stay active. But if you don't use it, you will lose it in both types, sudden onset or the form that is dementia. So I'm going to talk about how we help in just a little bit to prevent this from happening.
She just said my boyfriend points to words in magazines to tell me stuff. Should I make him try to say it?
Okay, so that's a really good question. He is communicating with you, which is brilliant. And there are some schools of thought that say every moment can be a learning moment. And yeah, I put a caveat in it, though. Not every moment should you be in the role of teacher or speech therapist or whatever it is, because it can be really frustrating for the person who's trying to communicate, and they have successfully communicated with you by pointing to it If he wants to practice at all those moments, then certainly, but ask him, do you want to practice this word? Can I tell you what it is? And then you copy it after me. But you can imagine if you were doing something and somebody stopped you every time they saw that there was a better way to do it or whatever, and said, no, do this, say this, repeat after me, say it here. You pointed to the car, say car, look in my mouth, car, right? That's so frustrating. So gauge. If he successfully communicated, I would say, oh, you like this car? Do you want to talk more about this car? And slip it in secondarily. So you've given him the word.
And she also asked, are there like classes I can take him to that would help?
Yes, and that's what I will connect you with afterwards.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. These are all great questions, so I hate to cut them off.
That's okay.
So again, I'm going to briefly go through the areas in which aphasia can impact language. I talk about them a little bit more in the other presentation from, when did we do it? In November?
Yeah.
So I can refer you to that. But then again, at the end, I will suggest that you connect with either an aphasia center or with me personally, and Voices of Hope in Florida. So I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly. We talked about how aphasia affects language and the 4 modalities. So I'm going to tackle speaking first. So everybody with any type of aphasia, primary, progressive, or sudden onset aphasia, has difficulty finding words. And there's 2 ways in which this can happen. The first one is that you know what you want to say, but you have the image, you know the thing, but the label that we use in our language isn't coming out. So it's sort of that tip of the tongue feeling. Oh, I know what it is. I just can't think of what the name is or what the word is. Sorry. So in this case, now we all experience this, but a person with aphasia is going to have it all the time. But in this case, the person sort of just stops. You know, that thing, and they don't have the word. Or they go to retrieve the word that they mean, but they grab one that's nearby. So either that it's nearby in meaning, or it's nearby in sound, or it's not even related at all. And when the wrong word comes out, we call it a paraphasia. So you might say the word dog when you mean cat. Or a lot of people with aphasia say no when they mean yes. So verifying that the right word has come out is critical, but it might not be related at all. Or it might, like the woman that we heard earlier tried to say the word, but worf came out. So some of the sounds are there, but they're in the wrong order. So these are things to sort of notice. There are also a person with any type of aphasia, but also a person with primary progressive aphasia, is going to rely on automatic sort of chit-chat speech that comes out correctly and normal because it's using a different pathway in the brain than when you're asking them something directly to respond to directly. So for example, sort of that automatic chit chat. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? What's your name? Oh, my name is Debbie. These are automatic and they come out naturally. So a person, even with the more severe types of aphasia or primary progressive aphasia, are going to trick you because this is going to come out fine. And you'll say, well, today he's just saying everything naturally. But oh, sorry. So these are some automatic phrases. So we learn to count in order. We learn to say the days of the week in order, chit-chat phrases and swear words. These are all automatic. But if you ask something on demand, what day is it today? Without starting at Monday, it's hard to get to, well, today's just Tuesday or Thursday. So a person who's asked a very direct question is going to struggle more than doing sort of chit-chatty speech, or you might see them counting up on their hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're relying on the automatic portion to get to the on-demand. And then, like I said before, especially little words like pronouns or opposites, these get mixed up very easily. And so if you're noticing that your loved one is starting to call a man she, it's not that they don't know, it's that they're reaching forward and they're getting the one that's semantically close. So these are common things in all aphasias, beyond sort of the breakdown that we saw in those videos. And I share these because I want you to know that it's not their fault. It's really hard to it's really easy, forgive me, it's really easy to get frustrated when somebody is, saying yesterday when they really mean tomorrow, but it's part of the language disorder. They don't mean it. So take a moment of patience, but also recognize that you're going to need to verify some of these things. So if you suspect that that wasn't right, just say, you said yesterday, but do you mean tomorrow? Do you mean Wednesday? And just clarify that. You're talking about the person that came to, I don't know, to fix the air conditioning. And you said he, I'm going to be feminist here, but do you mean she? Was it the woman that came to fix the air conditioning? So just double check those types of things. It's easy to see when somebody's having trouble speaking because it's obvious, but it's harder to understand. It's harder to understand, and it's harder to perceive what it means to have difficulty understanding. But similarly, a person can hear a word and map it to the wrong thing in their brain. So they've heard you've said one thing, they've understood a different thing. And so their comprehension is going in a different direction than what you're saying. So a person with primary progressive aphasia could have difficulty understanding what you're saying as well. So I'm going through these a little quickly because I want to have time to answer questions. So difficulty reading, also reading as a way to receive information, just like listening to speech. So it could match, they're both inputs. So a person's ability to read may match a person's ability to understand. But so they may see a word that looks like this and map it to the wrong word, mostly because those two words look similar when they're written down. But also a person may see this word and know what it is, even if they can't say it out loud. So in the case of adults, reading out loud does not mean they don't have reading comprehension. So in the case of your boyfriend, for example, writing down keywords, even if he can't say them written down, can help a person to understand what's being said. It's another way of processing language. And I use this example all the time. I watch a lot of British crime drama, and the words are going by too fast, even if I speak English. So I put the subtitles in. Senator John Fetterman uses subtitles to augment his deficit of auditory comprehension by also seeing it. Now he's getting 2 ways for the input. And this
somebody just asked, should I put subtitles on the TV? Does that help them, or am I just wasting my time?
Put subtitles on the TV.
Okay.
Yes. Just a blanket yes. It will help. Providing 2 ways to process the information. Now they might not be able to read all of it, but it'll help.
Okay.
All right. Similarly, writing is a form of expression. It's an output. So a person's ability to write may match their ability to speak. So when I dropped you into the middle of Spain and you couldn't tell me what you wanted to say, if I handed you a pencil and said, oh, can you just write it? well, if I don't have the word, I'm not going to be able to write it. But sometimes a person with any of these forms of aphasia can give you clues because they may be able to give you the first letter. So maybe they do have a sense of the word and they can give you the first letter. So here are some tips for talking with a person with aphasia. And although this is Vincent Vega, which was not Bruce Willis, it is a Bruce Willis film. I have to admit that I wait to talk, but I'm trying harder to listen. And this is the first tip that I'm going to give you as a loved one of a person with a language disorder. Slow down, be patient, listen, and don't just listen for your next turn to talk, because a person with aphasia is going to be giving you some clues. They need a lot of time to get their message across. So slow down. Now, life does not move slowly. Life moves quickly. So it is not always possible to slow down, but find the moments where you're having a conversation and you can slow down and take a moment. Or if you notice there's something important that my loved one is trying to tell me, make that moment be a slow down moment, no matter what. Reduce background noise. I think, yeah. So here's my 10 tips, but here's 5. Reduce background noise, getting information from the outside in a restaurant. You probably can't tell everybody to shut up, but turn off the TV, turn off the radio. Say one thing at a time. That means having one, again, if possible, one conversation at a time and one idea at a time. So the epitome is going to the restaurant and the wait staff says, "Oh, would you like baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, French fries, green beans?" Blah, 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 blah. It's too many options to process. So if you're having a conversation with options, ask one at a time and let them say yes or no. Do you want mashed potatoes? Do you want French fries? Using pen and paper to communicate, no matter what. If I'm going in to talk to a person with aphasia, if they have the most severe or advanced PPA or the mildest, a pen and paper is my best friend, because writing down keywords or giving them the opportunity to draw, to give me some idea, is an invaluable tool. And those videos, Linda's videos, will help there too. And try to maintain eye contact. There's a lot of clues that you can get, including getting a sense of the form of the word on your lips, but also facial expressions by looking at each other. There is a bright side. Always look on the bright side of life. There are ways to support even the progressive form of PPA. Speech therapy can help. They can continue to practice the language that's there. They train in using strategies to overcome moments of blockage, but they can also implement a speech generation device early so that as speech degrades, they already know how to use it later and can have an iPad or a phone talk for them. And staying engaged. So this is what I was saying earlier. Look for an aphasia center in your area. I should have put the link for aphasia.org. There's an area that says look for a provider, and then you can put in your state or your zip code. In the Tampa Bay area, Voices of Hope for Aphasia is here for you. And it's not here just for the person with aphasia, but for the loved ones as well. Dr. Kate was talking about how important it is to support the caregivers as well. We do that too. For a more extended version of this training, specifically on PPA, I host a workshop, both for aphasia due to sudden onset, due to a stroke or a brain injury, but also for the PPA version that is 4 hours of going into depth about this and answering your very, very specific questions with your loved one who has aphasia there, so that I can give you those tips immediately. And you can get more information at our website, vohaphasia.org, or aphasia.org nationally, and find an organization close to you, but I can also help you find those. Here are some pictures from Voices of Hope for Aphasia to give you some examples of how we stay engaged. We don't do speech therapy, but these are communication groups. This gentleman here has PPA. These are communication groups where it's topic-based, but we encourage people to continue to talk about topics of interest with lots of supports. So everything that you see on this table are ways. So for the boyfriend who was pointing at pictures, we have maps, we have communication books that you can't see on this table. Oh, right here, that allow people to point to things. This is another example. Both of these people have PPA. We do outings. So as families, we stay engaged in the community. Here's another gentleman with PPA. We do volunteering activities together to feel productive and giving back in life, and questions. So hopefully
Okay.
I've left some time for questions. But if you know anyone with aphasia, we can help either directly in the Tampa Bay area or connecting you.
So somebody just said, Jane asked, if I send you my email, will you put me on your email list?
Absolutely.
Okay. Another person says, my cousin has aphasia. I don't know what kind, but when he sings, his words come out fine. So now his wife is having him sing sentences. Does that make any sense?
Okay, so yes, and certainly if it's working, absolutely, it makes sense. So music is processed in on the opposite side of our brain. So two things are happening. They're using the retained part of the brain, the part of the brain that is not damaged or diseased, together with the automatic processing that I was talking about before. You know, you put a song from the 80s on the radio, for some reason, I still know all the words. And it's because it's using both sides, the music side and the automatic side. So yes, it is a great way for a person who's struggling to say any words to suddenly have success in speaking through singing. So it's certainly a morale boost. And there are therapies that put sentences, phrases of importance, daily activities to music so that you can sort of create that connection with the music part. But it is rarely the case, but this is why I said, if it does work for them, continue to do it. It is rarely the case that somebody can suddenly sing a phrase that isn't already practiced and memorized as a song.
Okay.
And
So
if
you
anybody
might
saw
sing
the
the
video,
song well, but doesn't mean it's just because of memory.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And if anybody saw the video that Bruce Willis's family put out recently for his birthday, he was singing along to Happy Birthday. And it's because it's in a retained part of the brain that's automatic using music, but he probably can't form those words otherwise.
Okay. Another person says, I love the idea of the volunteer activities. Unfortunately, my husband doesn't even want to go to church anymore because he said everyone thinks he's stupid.
Yeah. So this is a very, very common thing that I hear all the time. And, you know, church is an important part of people's lives, and they like to go there both for community, for involvement. So it's really hard when that community, it's really a lack of understanding, right? So aphasia centers like Voices of Hope, I think also Dr. Kate and you, Linda, mentioned this before, going to a support group or going to an activity that doesn't match exactly your experience isn't always super helpful. So the importance of aphasia centers like Voices of Hope is to participate and engage, and a lot of aphasia centers have Bible study classes, engage in things of interest in a community that understands and can support the situation that you're in. So this is why I'm a huge advocate for aphasia centers. So again,
Yeah, because everybody wants to be surrounded by like-minded people.
yeah,
And if I'm in a room with other people that are also struggling, and I know I'm not stupid, I know they're not stupid.
yep,
That could make a whole different. I met a gentleman one time that had a business card, and he had on the business card it said, "I am not stupid, and I am not drunk. I have aphasia."
it's probably one of ours, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull this one out. So we have a PPA version of this as well. So, oh shoot, I have to stop the blur. I don't know how to do that quickly.
That's okay.
So it's exactly what you described. It says, I'm going to try it one more time. It may be, okay. You can maybe see a little bit. It says, I have aphasia. It is a language disorder. It is not an issue with intellect. Please speak slowly, ask me yes or no questions and things like that. And I'm happy to send these out if somebody sends me their address.
Okay.
But yeah, our motto is loss of language, not intellect. So share that with the church group.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different thing. And I love the cards, because sometimes it's hard for a caregiver to even explain to somebody what's going on with their loved one. And I have the cards that say I have dementia also.
Yep.
It makes a big difference if you can just hand that to somebody, because when people know there's an issue, people are more patient and people are more understanding.
Yeah, which is great. These cards work very well for that. People want to be helpful.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps it up for now, my friend. Thank you so much for being with us. So wait, maybe one more. Thank you so much for such an insightful presentation. Because my brother struggled with stuttering as a child, he received speech therapy in elementary school in Denver. After 5th grade in 2008, we moved overseas and stopped getting SLP therapy. Now at age 26, he's frustrated, withdrawn, depressed as he continues to struggle with his speech impediment. I know it's not a dementia-related question, but what recommendations do you have, please?
Can I ask you to email me, Linda, if you can share with them my email address?
Give me your email. I'll put it right in there right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, email me and I can provide some hints and tips.
Give me your email so I can type it in right now.
Oh yeah, Debbie, DEBBIE.
Yeah.
At VOH, like Voices of Hope, aphasia, APHASIA. .org.
All right, I just put that in the chat room for them. So hopefully they'll be able to email you for more information.
Perfect.
All right, my friend, thank you so much for being here today. What is the last thing you want our listeners to hear?
Oh,
be patient.
Be patient. Yeah, be patient and find local resources, especially with aphasia of any type. Staying engaged is the best thing that you can do. And as a loved one, it gives you time to do other stuff while they're staying engaged.
One last thing the person just said, I didn't even know there were resources, but now I know. Thank you.
Yes, please look for them.
Fabulous. Thank you, my friend. We'll chat soon. Have a delicious day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks, Linda.
Bye.
Bye-bye.